What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Sports Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is getting so close to mock draft season. I couldn't wait anymore. I just couldn't wait anymore. This is not the official mock draft 1.0 or anything like that. We're just starting to kind of look into these things, starting to watch a couple of players, starting to figure out who I think is a good fit for what team. And there's no better way to do that than by firing up the old PFF mock draft simulator, selecting all teams, and giving you guys what I think very early. It's only, December 6th right now. I'm giving you guys a very, very early look at how the board may fall if there are no trades, which there obviously will be. There's no trades here, and I'm just kind of looking at team needs, what I think they could need, who I like in that spot, some prospects to get you guys thinking. So let's just dive right into this one, okay? So we're not making any trades at all. So on the clock with pick number 1, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not here for a quarterback. They're not going to take a QB. They need a guard, a tackle, and a corner. It depends on what you think of Travis Hunter and what kind of corner you think he can be. While I think that the Jags would be smart to move off of this pick and trade down with either the Giants or the Raiders, I'm not doing that right now. That's not what we're doing. So with the first pick, I would take Travis Hunter for the Jaguars. I'm converting him to a full-time corner, though. You're not playing this back and forth. I'm not wearing you out, because if I wear you out, you're going to get cooked by NFL receivers. And the Jags desperately need help in their secondary. And you're a full-time corner, and I will probably have a small-ish play package for him on offense. You want to use him. He's excellent with the ball in his hands. The guy's a freak. He's just an absolute freak. Travis Hunter's the best player in college football. Probably going to win the Heisman. Maybe undeserved, but he's probably going to win it. And he plays excellent football on both sides of the ball. You get him just to play corner, and he could be an absolute monster. I think you're taking a huge swing at potential upside here. He could be an all-time bust, and he could be an all-time great. So I'm going to go with Travis Hunter at pick number 1. And pick number 2 for the Raiders. This will be the first of maybe only 2 quarterbacks off the board in this draft. I'm going with Colorado's Shedeur Sanders. We've got Colorado boys going 1 and 2. I do think Shedeur is the best quarterback in this class. Very accurate passer. He is an excellent processor. That will play at the next level. His ability to process what he sees in front of him and get to where he needs to is second to none in this class. And I like his escapability if he needs it. I'm a fan of Shedeur Sanders. He holds on the ball too long. It's a college. I'm hoping that we can fix that a little bit once he gets to the pros. But I like Shedeur Sanders to go pick number 2 to the Raiders, meaning the New York Football Giants have a very easy pick at pick 3. You got to take a QB, and it's not Jalen Milroe. Milroe's not this high in my opinion. I'm not that high on him. It's Cam Ward. Cam Ward out of University of Miami. He's got the best improvisational skills of this class. His ability to turn nothing into something is second to none in this class. It's something you see from the great QBs like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson. I'm not comparing him to them, but I'm saying like their ability to make something from nothing. That's what he's got. He's got just some flair for the position. He likes to throw the ball from different arm angles. He's fun to watch. He has a clutch gene. All right, we've seen it so many times. It's something you can't quantify. His ability to go win the football game more often than not, at least this year, has been impressive, man. Even in games you're like, Miami shouldn't win this game, he's getting them to win that football game. So I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. A little older of a prospect. He's played a ton, but he has franchise quarterback potential just like Shedeur Sanders, and I think good coaching can help with some mechanical issues that you can identify in his film. Pick 4, New England Patriots are thrilled, although nobody was going to take him in front of them. I got Ted McMillan coming off the board here. Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona. O-line is tempting at this pick for New England. Their offensive line is abysmal, but there's just not an offensive lineman that I feel comfortable with at pick number 4 that's like a game changer. There's no Joe Alt in this class, but Ted McMillan is an absolute monster of a receiver. He's coming in at 6'5", great movement skills for that size. He's going to run in the high 4.4s. Like, that is fast. For 6'5" with the hands that he has, absolute star. He could be a monster for Drake May, his new best friend. And that's how you are going to evaluate if Drake May is worth a damn. You have to get him a receiver that he can throw the ball to reliably. He doesn't have that right now. Give him Teteroa McMillan and see what they can come into together. Pick number 5, you've got the Carolina Panthers on the board here. I'm going with defensive end Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Another freak athlete, defensive end out of Penn State. All of his last year's measurable king was Chop Robinson out of Penn State. This guy is exactly the same. He's going to run in the high 4.4s at his size. Abdul Carter is not small. To be able to run a 4.4 at 6'3", 252 unbelievable. And he's getting the stats behind it too. This year alone, he's got a 90.2, an elite overall grade per PFF. 10 sacks, 8 hits, 27 quarterback hurries. I mean, my God, this guy is tearing it up. And Carolina just needs best player. They traded away Brian Burns this past offseason. They're getting no pressure on the quarterback. You're not going QB because Bryce Young has looked really good these last couple of weeks. But you went wide receiver last year. This year, let's help the defense out and get them probably one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in the entire draft. Pick number 6, you've got the New York Jets on the board. And I hate this pick because I think it's a really good pick. I'm going with corner Will Johnson out of Michigan. I think he's the best pure corner in the class today. Now, if Travis Hunter goes all in on corner and he becomes that guy at corner, then maybe it's him. But Will Johnson has the size you covet at the position, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's just downright excellent. I mean, he's just excellent. He's just a fantastic corner. You put him opposite side of Sauce Gardner. DJ Reed's a free agent. You just let DJ Reed walk, save your money, and you just go Sauce Gardner and Will Johnson on the boundary. And, man, that is going to be hard to throw against. So, Will Johnson goes to the Jets at pick 6. Tennessee on the board here, a guy that I think we've kind of forgotten about a little bit. It's got to be receiver, right? It's got to be receiver. Treylon Burks has been a bust. Calvin Ridley's been okay, but they're paying him. He's not going anywhere. And DeAndre Hopkins is gone. And Nick Westbrook-Akine has been great. Yeah, you go with someone like Luther Burden here, though, man. I feel like we've just all forgotten how good he was last year. It was just competent play in Missouri. He can and will absolutely feast in the slot in the NFL with his elite twitchiness, and this gives Will Levis somebody who can be open more often than not. I think he can get 100, 105 catches as a rookie if Will Levis doesn't play stupid and just takes the check down when he's open. His ability to separate is the best in this class. He is shifty. I'm excited to watch him play in the NFL. Hopefully Will Levis doesn't miss him on all of his throws. Pick 8, we've got Cleveland on the board here, and we're going to get our first offensive lineman, and that's going to be tackle Will Campbell out of LSU. Excellent size and athleticism, fantastic footwork. Honestly, just an excellent offensive line prospect. Not on the same level as Joe Alt, and I think he's as good as J.C. Latham was coming out, and maybe Olu Fashion, who's a better pass blocker than Campbell was, but Will Campbell's a better run blocker than he was, so we'll call that a wash. But the biggest concern you have with Will Campbell is his arm length, which is just average. It's not exceptional. He can get beat with leverage that these defensive ends can get with their long-ass arms. So do you kick him into guard? Maybe. If you do, he's going to be fantastic at guard too. I think he has the talent to stick at tackle, and I think he has the arms to do it. But it's going to be tough against some of those guys with that 35, 36-inch arms when he's outranged. That'll be tricky. So we'll see where they decide to play him, but they need a tackle because Jedrick Wills probably out the door. So Will Campbell, I think, gets a shot at tackle, and I think he can stick there. I really do. Pick number 9, New Orleans Saints here. I just got them going best player available on my board at this point, and that's Mason Graham, defensive lineman for Michigan. Now, maybe they're in the QB market, but taking one here would be a terrible reach. Mason Graham would give them a dominant interior defensive lineman for years to come. They've got aging guys on that side of the ball. You've got to start getting younger and more talented on the defensive side of the ball. Just plain and simple. So I love Mason Graham here. Best player available. Great pick. Pick number 10. This is becoming common, and I hate that because I thought I was ahead of my time here. But I like Ashton Jeanty here. I like Ashton Jeanty to Cincinnati, man. Chase Brown has looked good, sure, but he's not Ashton Jeanty. I mean, Tyler Algier looked fine for the Falcons, and they still went out and got Bijan Robinson. Because when you have a chance to get one of these guys and fix or make a strength like the offense even more of a strength, you do it. The Bengals aren't going to fix their defense over the offseason. There's just no way. They're going to probably bring in a whole new DC, have to start building it the way that DC wants. So you have a strength. It's on the offensive side of the football. Just lean into that and just make a strength even more of a strength. Maybe you go with someone like Malachi Starks here. I could totally see them taking him at safety to fill the Jesse Bates role. He doesn't help them as much as Ashton Jeanty, I think, can help them next year. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make that move. Pick number 11. This one pains me because I hoped he would fall one more spot, but I can't do it. I'm never gonna make a pick for a team to help out another team down the board. Why on earth would I ever do that? I want the Dolphins to get Kelvin Banks, so I'm going to mock Kelvin Banks to the Dolphins at pick 12 and give the Bears someone else. That's stupid. The Bears need interior offensive linemen desperately. They need offensive linemen. Kelvin Banks is a stud, could be the best offensive lineman in this class, and I love the fit of him here. He's playing tackle at Texas, could definitely slide into guard, but offer that flat tackle flexibility that teams covet. If you have Braxton Jones go down with an injury, guess what? You kick Kelvin Banks out there, and you have depth at guard that you can put someone at guard. Kelvin Banks can play excellent tackle for you too if you need him to. It's like when the Dolphins drafted Laramie Tunsil when they had Brandon Albert. It's not necessarily Laramie Tunsil is not a guard. Obviously, he's one of the best left tackles in football, but sticking him at guard for a year or two, not the worst idea. So I like that pick there. Pick 12, you want to go offensive line for Miami. You really do. Josh Simmons isn't a bad idea here, but knowing how the Dolphins draft, I don't see them going offensive line, especially I think Kelvin Banks is kind of their guy. If he's gone, it's not who they're taking. So I'm assuming the Dolphins just let Javon Holland walk and say, all right, that's fine. We'll bring in your replacement in safety Malachi Starks, one of probably the best 10 players in this draft class, I would say. Just plays all over the field. Like I said, would have loved to have Banks. We need interior offensive linemen, but with Campbell and him off the board, best player available for you is Malachi Starks. And if Holland's gone, Starks slides right in. Starks just comes right in, day one starter for you, and I like him a lot as a prospect. He's like the Brian Branch role. He brings attitude with him. He's going to be nasty. He's an absolute dog, a Georgia Bulldog, you know what I mean? I love that pick for Miami if they pivot away from offensive line. It needs to be Malachi Starks or an offensive lineman, or we riot. Dallas on the clock here. I've got one that I don't know. I'm interested to hear how Dallas fans feel. Dallas has struggled against the run. I'm not taking an RB at 13 that isn't Ashton Genty. I'm just not doing it. So you're looking D-line or linebacker. I'm going to take edge rusher Nick Scorton here. Yes, I know. We've got Micah Parsons. We've got Tank Lawrence. Well, Tank Lawrence is getting older. I don't know how old he is. Should have probably looked that up, but I don't know how old he is. Also, Scorton is listed as an edge rusher. He's 280 pounds. I could see the Cowboys wanting to develop this guy as an all-around just defensive lineman. You don't need to just line up wide of the tackles. He can go up against a guard. He's got size. He's 280 pounds. He's strong as shit. I'm a big fan of Nick Scorton's game. He's the best run-stopping defensive end in this entire class. And if you play him at tackle, he's got high pass rusher upside from the interior too, because he's going to be faster than them. So he's strong enough to play with power, but he's fast enough to beat the slower interior offensive lineman. I think he'd be a great pick. I could see him if he puts on maybe 10 pounds, goes up to bulks up to 290, maybe 295. Oh, I think he could be dominant for the Cowboys defense. I think he could be an absolute stud. And you keep him in Texas. That's kind of fun. Pick 14, we've got San Francisco on the clock. Sadly, Trent Williams cannot play forever, guys. So you've got to bring someone in that's going to step up. And we've seen how bad this offensive line is without Trent Williams. It's one of the worst in the entire league. I think Josh Simmons is falling just a touch. I think he's one of the best guys in this entire draft, offensive line-wise. Didn't allow a sack this year before he got hurt. Obviously, he played 6 games. 1 sack last year in, 440 pass blocking snaps. He gave up 1 sack last year. Josh Simmons is a stud, and yes, he got hurt, and that really hurts his stock, but you can play him. I mean, he played his entire 2022 season at right tackle, whole 2023 at left tackle. He's got tackle flexibility either side. So if Trent Williams is back, hey, play Josh Simmons on the right then. I don't care. Play him on the right side for a year, and then swing him to left whenever Trent Williams is ready to walk. Also, one of the biggest knocks on him is he needs to learn some technique. He has a little bit of technique issues. He needs to refine a little bit. Who better to learn from than Trent freaking Williams, the best tackle of his generation? A perfect player to learn from, to just take over for. I think Josh Simmons can be an absolute star if he's coached up. Indianapolis Colts on the clock at pick 15 here. Kind of a tough pick for me, but I think that everything that they do this offseason needs to be geared towards making sure Anthony Richardson has all the support he needs to turn into the guy. You need pieces, more and more pieces around him. And one of a developing quarterback's best friends is a reliable tight end. And I'm a big fan of Colston Loveland out of Michigan. He does it all. 83.4 overall grade on here. 6'5", 245. He's not even 21 years old yet. He is young. Way young, 2 or 3 years younger than Warren out of Penn State. And he's a really solid blocker. Do it all. Excellent hands. Solid blocker to boot. I compare him, just watching how he plays, he looks like Tucker Kraft. He looks like Pat Freiermuth to me. That's the kind of guy I think that the Colts are getting. You love to have him there. You love to put him with Anthony Richardson, make him the safety blanket, and he could go off. He could have maybe not a Brock Bowers type rookie season, but a Sam Laporta type rookie season is not off the cards here. Pick 16, we've got Tampa Bay here. I've got them taking the very versatile Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Defensive end, linebacker, extremely versatile defender. He's got 3 down capabilities, and his athletic profile is unbelievable. This is one of those classic we're taking the traits kind of guy and hoping we can coach him up. you can't teach the athleticism that this guy has, so you're hoping that he gets Todd Bowles and that defense gets a hold of him and just turns him into an absolute monster, and he absolutely can be. He can rush the passer for you. He can drop back and play coverage as a linebacker. He's that athletic. I'm a big fan of him. I think he could be the Devin White you never really had except for 1 year, just a guy that plugs in the middle of your defense for the next 10, 15 years, and you just forget about him because he's that good. Pick 17, Los Angeles Rams. They need a tackle, and I got one for him, and his name is Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. Now, it's close. You've got two guys, and maybe, spoiler alert, you may have the other one going next up, but I like Ariante Ursary's size. I like his measurables a ton. Also, only 1 sack this year in 419 pass block snaps. That's incredible. 6'6", 330 pounds. Guy's an absolute mauler. He just won Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. He comes with the best size you can want. He could be a monster. I'm a big fan of Ariante Ursary, and Rams could really use someone at tackle. Same thing for the Arizona Cardinals. They could also really use a tackle. I've got them going with West Virginia's Wyatt Milam. You want to talk about someone who showed out in college that just it doesn't jump off the page at you because they aren't a receiver or a running back or a quarterback or a fun position? This guy. You want to see who played well in college? This guy did. Elite pass protector with exceptional technique. He is an absolute technician of an offensive lineman. 0 sacks or quarterback hits in 2023. None. And only 9 pressures allowed over 305 pass blocking snaps. That's insane. He's a versatile lineman with experience at both tackle positions and a willingness to learn center. He's trying to take the Graham Barton route. You can play him at any of the 5 offensive line positions, and he's going to be very good for them. Exceptional durability. He started 31 consecutive games and has logged over 2,200 offensive snaps. He doesn't miss games. He just is there every single week, ready to go. And he's sneaky athletic. He might break 4.9-ish. For offensive lineman at tackle, at his size, that's incredible. I'm a huge fan of Wyatt Milam, by the way. Pick 19, Atlanta. You guys know that this has to be an edge rusher. It has to be someone to go get after the quarterback. Yes, I know they brought in Matthew Judon. They still aren't getting any pressure. So I'm going with a guy that was preseason projected to be a top 5 pick and has had not a great season. That's James Pierce. And it's not like he's been terrible. 8 sacks, 4 hits, 40 quarterback hurries. I mean, he's getting there. He's just not getting it done. 40 quarterback hurries in 230 pass rush snaps is an insane number. That's insane. To go along with his 11 sacks last year, this guy's a stud, and the fact that he's falling down draft boards is very confusing to me. I've always been a huge James Pierce fan. Atlanta, you guys get yourself a top 7, top 8 player in this draft class at pick 19. That's an all-time steal. All-time steal. Pick 24, Seattle. I've got them going offensive lineman Cameron Williams out of Texas. Heavy-handed, high-ceiling blocker. Can definitely transition to guard if you need him to. Just has to work on some of the technical aspects of his game. You see him, like, if he comes up against a speed rusher, sometimes I notice that he oversets on his kick step, and then he leaves himself open to inside counters. Just things that he has to work on. However, he won't have to worry about that if he's playing guard. He doesn't have, he's a little bit... His prototypical tackle size, 6'5", 335. He can play guard, though, and I think he can be a damn good one at that. Seattle, probably has their offensive linemen in Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, but if one of them falters, Cameron Williams is the next guy up, and I think he can be an absolute monster. And at pick 20, another guy who I think that's really a pretty good steal. Pick 21, this pick became even more relevant recently as they cut Emmanuel Forbes, who was awful for them. By the way, if you haven't seen the video of him already on the Rams, his legs are toothpicks. I've never seen skinnier legs on a human being, honest to God. I'm having them take Benjamin Morrison here, a guy who could have competed for that top cornerback spot in this entire class, but due to the injury, he was only able to play 6 games. Very, very good corner. Wasn't playing so hot this year. I don't care. 6 foot, 190. Very good. And obviously Washington screwed up in a disastrous decision, drafting Emmanuel Forbes over Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter Jr., who are both on the board. But this guy's got great ball skills, elite change of direction and quickness, fluid hips to go along with good size for the position. I think if he hadn't gotten hurt, he'd be picked much higher than pick 21, so Washington gets themselves a good one here. And, when he's ready for the regular season and he plays like a stud, it's like, wow, how'd this guy fall to pick number 21? Pick 22, Houston Texans. I've got them going with the guy that I keep saying I'm surprised that they're here, but I'm not really, because Kenneth Grant kind of tends to fall into this zone here. But I'm going Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman out of Michigan. Michigan's defensive line has just been insane. Big fan of Kenneth Grant. I think Houston's going to address the interior offensive line in free agency, so I'm kind of projecting that a little bit here and not taking an offensive lineman. But this guy is a best player available, and he's a freak defensive lineman. Just an absolute freak. 6'4", 360 pounds. Excellent run defender with a high motor. He's someone that you can just plug out there and he's going to go. I mean, look at all those snap numbers. Like you have concerns that his size is going to limit his ability to play a ton. He's a big fella. He's only listed as 339 here. I saw him at 360. So they have him a little smaller here on PFF, but either way, he's massive. So you worry, oh, well, Jordan Davis, same thing. Coming out of Georgia, he's too big to play that often. I don't know if you're going to have that problem with Kenneth Grant. I think he's got the conditioning and the endurance to play. Like, yeah, he didn't have as many snaps last year, but 547 defensive snaps this year through 12 games. You can line him up over the B gap. You can line him up as a nose tackle. You can line up all over the place. The guy's a monster. He's just overshadowed by Mason Graham, but he is very, very good. Next up, Broncos. I'm focusing on their number one need here, which is wide receiver, and I'm going to give them Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. I've been a huge fan of his for a while. I don't know why. I've just always been a huge fan of it. And if you're gonna take a wide receiver from any college, it should be Ohio State wide receiver university. They just continue to produce studs at the next level. His stats haven't been anything spectacular since 2022, but 2022 74 catches, 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. And then just some very subpar quarterback play these last 2 years. Yeah, C.J. Stroud throwing him the ball here, and he also was splitting with Marvin Harrison. He did this with Marvin Harrison Jr. also taking reps. That's crazy. This year, not as great statistically, but he's going to test excellent. I think he's going to run a low 4.3, maybe even a high 4.2 40. And for a guy that can get open like he does with decent size for the position at 6'1", 205 pounds, I think that's a fantastic pick for Denver to go with Bo Nix. And now you've got yourself a nice little trio of wide receivers with him, Troy Franklin, and Cortland Sutton. Give Bo Nix weapons. See what he can do with them. Pick 24. This is one I'm interested to hear from. I want to know what you guys all think about this pick. You look at what it says they need: guard, tackle, corner. I don't like any of those at this position here. Derrick Henry can't play forever. I'm sorry, he can't. As much as I would like him to, and he's been fantastic this year. Caleb Johnson reminds me a little bit of a smaller version of Derrick Henry. Look at these numbers, you guys. Look at these numbers. They're overshadowed by Ashton Genty, but he's doing it in the Big Ten, which is a lot more impressive than where Genty's doing it. 1,500 yards, 6.4 yards an attempt, 21 touchdowns. That is insane. Oh, man. You're going to lose Derrick Henry eventually. Do you really want to go back, Baltimore? Do you really want to go back to the days where you're like, well, maybe Gus Edwards can get it done for us? No. Get a difference maker. Caleb Johnson is a difference maker. I didn't even touch on his size. Look at this dude. 6 foot, 225. He's like a bowling ball. This is an absolute workhorse. Why not lean into your strength? You need defensive players. I understand that. The Ravens' defense has been subpar this season. They've allowed 24 points a game. It's not awful. Why not just lean into your strength of being your offense? You're going to need someone. Just for the next 10 years, you got Caleb Johnson, you got Lamar Jackson. There you go. What more do you need? They're going to be monsters together. I love Caleb Johnson here. I like the hard-nosed football of Iowa. He's going to fit right in with Baltimore. I love that pick to them. Ravens fans, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Chargers. I've got one here that this guy hasn't been talked about nearly enough for me, so I'm going to talk about him myself. I talked about him a lot in last year's draft cycle. Ended up going back to school. I got to find him here. Oh, my gosh. He's way too low. JT Tuimoloau, man. I am such a big fan of his. I think he is a monster. You see what he does against the top players. When he went up, he wrecked Olu Fashanu. And Olu Fashanu is going to be a very good NFL offensive lineman over time. I understand. I'm higher than him on most. I think he's a first-round talent. One of the most powerful point of attacks of the entire edge group in this draft class. Sets the edge against the run. He's physical. And I think Jim Harbaugh saw that when he played against him several times. He's like, damn, this guy does not let us get past him. So then he had to run the other way. Now you can add him. I know maybe he'd love himself Michigan, like to get Loveland here. Well, I'm sure he would love that. Maybe they move up and get him, but they stay here, get an edge rusher that can play for them right away, set the edge, and be a force on that defensive line. Green Bay Packers on the clock here. We're getting to the point where it's like, I'm just kind of feeling the board out as I make these picks. There's a guy I really like for them. Where is he? He's way low down here for some reason. There he is, Siobhan Ravel out of Eastern Carolina. If he was not hurt, he would be a surefire top 15 pick. Absolute stud. Absolute stud. Fantastic size. 6'3", $193, maybe a little skinny. Can maybe put on a couple of pounds. Not a big deal. was grading out as an 85.4 this year, had 2 picks already. He just didn't get targeted. 21 targets. He allowed 8 catches in 204 snaps. In 12 games in 2023, he was only targeted 43 times, giving up 19 catches and 1 touchdown with a pick, a passer rating of 61 when they targeted him. He's only gotten better as he's gotten, as he's aged and he's played. I think this is a home run pick for Green Bay. Jair Alexander's been banged up. They still need help in the secondary. They just gave up 34 to Detroit as I'm talking, last night. So I think you just go get Siobhan Ravel. I think he can be an absolute stud. Pittsburgh on the clock. Pittsburgh did this funny thing this past offseason where every wide receiver they signed was a little bit undersized and shifty. Well, why would they change now? Isaiah Bond's right here staring him in the face. They need a wide receiver very badly. Isaiah Bond is really solid too. 5'11", $180, so he fits their size profile nicely. His stats this year have been middling. His stats the last couple of years have kind of been middling. Just a very, very shifty kind of guy. I like him with his route running ability. He's got good, strong hands. I think he can be solid with Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and be a good complementary piece in that offense. And there's just no other game changers at that position or really positions of need. There's no tackle I love here or really linebacker I love here. I mean, it's just not there. So I think Isaiah Bond has a chance to be a really solid wide receiver, probably a number 2, but you don't hate that. There's nothing wrong with drafting a guy in the first round to be a number 2 receiver. Ask Jordan Addison how that's going. You cannot have too much talent there. So Minnesota's pick has been really hard for me. I've kind of gone around and around with this one. You want to go maybe cornerback here. So you look at the corners available. I just don't know about these guys. Jahdae Barron, if I remember correctly, I thought he was Iowa State. No, that's the wrong guy. Hang on. Texas, where's my Iowa? Darren Porter's who I was thinking about. He's big fella. 6'4", 200 pounds. Big dude. Could see Brian Flores liking someone like that. But as it stands, I think I'm going to have them take Mykel Williams here. This one's a tough pick. This one's a tough pick for me. Or do you have them dip into this insane running back class and have them go with Omarion Hampton? And that's what I'm going to have them do. I'm going to have them do it. This is a running back class this year is the best part of the entire draft. Like, if you take every position group, this is the best position group in the entire draft. Going with Omarion Hampton here to Minnesota. Aaron Jones is getting up there in age. I'm pretty sure he was just a 1-year deal for them. They don't have anybody in the wings. Omarion Hampton's stats, I mean, look at him. The last 2 years, he's had over 3,100 yards, 30 touchdowns, and he's a dual threat, 374 receiving yards. He's caught 38 of 43 targets. He's a do-it-all running back. You can't have enough of those. And for J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold, whoever the quarterback is next year, having this guy out of the backfield could be huge. Philadelphia on the clock here. This is who is getting Mykel Williams because he plays at Georgia. That's really the only reason I need as to why. Do they need edge rusher? Not necessarily. But this is a freak athlete, 6'5", 265 from Georgia. You can play him all over the place. You look at positions played. He's played outside the tackle. He's played over the tackle. He's done a little B-gap, a little off-ball action. He can play all over the place. And you just know that Howie Roseman and the Eagles are going to take a Georgia Bulldog. And it is what it is. I don't have a whole lot more that I feel like need to say about that. That's just what they do. Buffalo Bills here need defensive lineman and linebacker. I did pick out for them, I believe it was... Yes, T.J. Sanders, defensive lineman out of South Carolina. Another guy that can kind of play all over the defensive line, as you've seen. He's played a lot of B-gap this year. He's played B-gap and A-gap in years prior. Over the tackle, he's a kind of just a mix, just a piece. You know, they're losing Von Miller probably in the near future as he's getting up there in age. A.J. Epineza and Gregory Rousseau are solid, and so are Ed Oliver. T.J. Sanders just gives you another piece on that defense. Could see them going with a wide receiver, maybe Alec Ayomanor. I'm just not as high on him as others maybe. 6'2", 210. They just brought in Keon Coleman last year, and they're doing just fine on offense. I think they just continue to build a strength in the defensive side of the ball, so I'm going to have them go with T.J. Sanders here. Chiefs on the clock. They're also probably going running back, but which one do they go with? Is it which Ohio State running back? And I think you probably got to go with Quinshon Judkins here. Doesn't have the craziest stats this year, but he's also splitting carries with Travion Henderson. I think Quinshon Judkins is awesome. The stats back that up. I mean, 16, 15, and 8 touchdowns. The yards have been crazy. He's a monster, man. He's an absolute monster. I'm going to go Quinshon Judkins here at pick 31. And then pick 32 for the Detroit Lions. I'm just going to go best edge rusher available for them because they need one. Aiden Hutchinson's a monster, and no question about it. I like Shamar Stewart's size to play in the defense for Detroit. I think he can be really solid for them, too. This one's one where it's also just like, Could go LT Overton. I like LT Overton's size here. He's more of your smaller pass rusher type, but he's also 283 pounds. He's not that small. But I'm going to go ahead and give them the Texas A&M Shamar Stewart to round out the first round of my first mock draft on the channel for this year. Let me know what you guys think about this one. As if you could tell, really towards the bottom of the board there, it was just sort of see and feel and what I think about it and where we're at. But the first, 25 or so picks, 26 picks, honestly. Once we got to about 27 here, I was like, could go a number of different ways. But I love how this board fell for most teams, honestly. Nobody seemed to reach. I didn't see any reaches here, which there will definitely be. But I don't know, maybe you hated the pick for your team that I made. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of those picks, who you think goes where, and what you think ends up happening. Obviously, there's going to be trades. I'm not doing any trades, so this will look differently. This isn't even mock draft 1.0. This is just mock draft pre-mock season, okay? So do with it what you will. But that's all I've got for you guys in this edition of mock draft. Once again, sound off in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about this one. Let me know about a player maybe I need to start taking a little more seriously for round one consideration. And we'll see you guys in the next one.